Welcome to this week's Stampin' Fun Friday. This week I have a Valentine's card to share with you, featuring this cute Pure Innocence stamp from My Favorite Things. This stamp is called Love You With All My Heart. The first thing I did was take my Sizzix Big Shot and the ornamental die by Tim Holtz, and I cut a couple of strips of white Nina Solar White cardstock. It's the kind of cardstock that's good for coloring with Copic markers. And I just cut a couple of sheets at a time. With these steel rule Sizzix dies, you can cut several sheets at once. And I'm just using my craft pick to kind of pick it out because these are the movers and shapers dies from Tim Holtz. If you don't use something in the middle, they tend to get a little stuck sometimes, but they're real easy to pop right out. So I've cut out a couple of labels. I am going to do a couple of cards, but for today's video and card share, I'm just going to share the one. I'll share the other one here in a few days. So I'm going to ink up this cute little girl holding a heart with some Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I'm just stamping that on some masking paper that I have lying there because I'm going to need to mask her here in a little bit. I'm going to ink her up again. And I'm using the Fisker stamp press. I really love the Fisker stamp press because I feel like I can kind of lay my stamp over it, position it just right, and then push it down on my piece of paper. And now I'm just quickly going to speed through the coloring, and I'll share the Copic markers I used on my blog post on January 7th. But I'm just coloring in her skin tones, and the colors I'm using here are E000, E00, E11, and R20. The R20's for her cheeks. And just adding the shading, going a step darker each time, and then going over the whole thing to blend it with that E000. For the little heart she's holding, I want to color that red. And I always start out with a really light color. I think it's light prawn, R22. And then I use R24, and then I believe R29 is the real red you see there. But that gives some nice shading and dimension to the heart. And when I'm finished, I'll go back over the whole thing with the R22, my lightest color again. I'm using some pinks for her little dress because this is going to be a Valentine's card, so I wanted to kind of stick with the traditional red and pink theme. And again, I'm just using 3 shades of pink, going from lightest to darkest and then blending. Same thing for her hair. Giving her a little bit of a light brown hair there. And I colored her barrette pink as well. And you can go over the coloring as many times as you want. I kind of felt like I needed to blend in her skin a little bit better, so I went over it again. Using some shades of gray for her shoes. Added a little red for the little buckle there. And I'm leaving the toe box of her shoes lighter on purpose so it looks like they might be a little scuffed. I've cut out my mask now, and I'm going to just peel that away, and I'm going to layer it right over my colored image. And the masking paper won't harm your image at all. It won't take any of the coloring away or anything like that. It'll just protect your image from what you're going to stamp over it. And I'm going to use this new Happy Definition Clings background stamp from Hero Arts. I'm going to ink it up with some antique linen distress ink. Make sure I get that good and covered. And then instead of placing the stamp on top of the die cut stamped image, I'm going to place my die cut on top of it and just press the ink on. I'm going to keep one hand still and then take the other hand and make sure I get all of the edges covered really well. And that just gives really nice coverage Sometimes I think that gives more control than trying to stamp it the traditional way. I'm going to take that same antique linen color and use the blending tool from Ranger to add a nice antiqued look to the entire background. You can see I've left my mask in place. I'm not going to remove that until I'm completely done with the inking. So now that I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and just peel my mask right away. And you can see how that just adds so much to the design. I'm going to work on my background piece now, and I'm using this cute tiny prints, tiny backgrounds I think it is, from Fawn, and these are the little hearts, and they're just perfect for Valentine's Day. I'm using some red ink from Stampin' Up. It's Riding Hood Red, and I'm just going to stamp it on this fine linen paper tray ink cardstock. And I'm just going to repeat that all the way up. I started at the bottom and then I'm going to work my way up to create the entire background. I'm going to add just a little bit of silk ribbon. So I added some adhesive to the back of my die cut label. Flip her over there, and then I'll just tie that in a pretty bow on the front. Silk ribbon is nice to work with because it creates a tiny knot and it's not very bulky. I'm going to distress the edges of this other piece here that I stamped with the little hearts, and I added a little glitter pin to the heart as well because I wanted it to kind of shimmer and shine. So I'm just using the clear Copic glitter pin. And then I didn't feel like the label was standing out enough against that background piece, so I used a little frayed burlap distress ink to really make the edges of that die stand out. And out of some scrap fine linen cardstock, I'm going to punch a little word bubble and ink the edges with the frayed burlap, just to kind of keep in with the theme of the rest of the card. And then I'm going to use this cute Sending You Love greeting from a New Hero Arts stamp set. Peel that off. It's brand new, so it's never been opened. And then I always like to place it on where I'm going to stamp it and make sure it's going to fit nicely. Get my ink ready. I'm going to use the Riding Hood Red ink from Stampin' Up again. And then I'm just going to take my Fisker stamp press and pick up the greeting. Add some ink. And then stamp that right on that word bubble. I'm really combining a lot of different stamps from different companies from this card. I think it's fun to mix and match. So there's the cute little greeting, and I felt like it needed just a little something, so I'm going to take a black pen and add a little stitched line. And I also added the same stitched line to the label. It's a real quick and easy way to just kind of dress it up and give it another dimension without adding any bulk or anything like that. I'm going to adhere that die cut stamped label with some foam adhesive, and same thing for the word bubble. Add a button to the center of the bow and some gemstones to the heart, and the card is finished. For more information, please visit my blog at www.nicolemcgork.typepad.com on January 7th, 2011. Thanks for watching.